Marcus Hale learned to move quietly through rooms that were never meant to notice him. Every morning before sunrise he packed his daughter Lily's lunch, folded the note she liked to read twice, and walked her to the bus stop with a calm smile that hid how tired he felt. By 8 he was at the glass tower downtown, badge clipped, shoulders straight, doing a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on and nothing more. At work, Marcus was dependable in the invisible way. He fixed problems before they became emergencies. He stayed late without being asked. He spoke politely and briefly, never interrupting, never assuming he belonged in conversations that floated above his pay grade. When people described him, they used words like solid or reliable, the kind that ended discussions instead of starting them. His boss, Eleanor Wright, existed on another floor and in another world. She was the company's CEO, known for precision and restraint, for running meetings like clockwork and keeping her private life entirely sealed. Her office overlooked the city, all clean lines and muted colors, designed to impress and discourage lingering. To Marcus, she was mostly an email signature and a calm voice requesting small things that somehow carried great weight. That evening, the building emptied faster than usual. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the city into soft gray lines. Marcus finished his last task, checked the time, and felt the familiar pull of guilt for being late again. Lily would be waiting with her homework spread out, pretending not to mind. He shut down his computer and stood ready to leave. His phone buzzed. A short message appeared from Eleanor's assistant, asking if Marcus could stop by the executive floor before heading out. It was phrased politely, but Marcus understood that, if possible, often meant now. He straightened his jacket and rode the elevator up, watching the numbers rise. Eleanor's office door was open. She stood near her desk, jacket draped over a chair, sleeves rolled up in a way that felt unexpectedly human. Her laptop glowed on the desk. She looked up when Marcus knocked, surprise flickering across her face before settling into composure. "Thank you for coming," she said. "This won't take long." Marcus nodded. "Of course." She gestured to the chair across from her. He sat, hands folded, waiting. For a moment, Eleanor seemed to search for words, her gaze resting somewhere just past him. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. "I was told you're good with technical things," she said carefully. "Apps, profiles, that sort of thing." Marcus hesitated. "I can try to help." Eleanor exhaled, almost a laugh. She turned the laptop toward him. On the screen was a dating app profile, half finished. A photo placeholder. A blinking cursor in the bio section. Marcus felt a small jolt of surprise, quickly tucked away. "I don't need opinions," she said, firm but not cold. "Just clarity. The app keeps suggesting edits I don't understand." Marcus leaned forward slightly, keeping his distance. "I'll show you where to adjust the basics," he said. "Photos, interests. Nothing personal." "That would be appreciated." As he explained settings and buttons, Eleanor watched closely, asking precise questions. Marcus answered simply, focusing on the task. Yet as minutes passed, the room felt different, less formal. Eleanor removed her watch, set it aside. Marcus noticed but said nothing. When they reached the bio section, Eleanor frowned. "It wants me to summarize myself in a few sentences." Marcus nodded. "Most people keep it simple." She looked at the empty text field. "I don't know how." The admission surprised him. "You could start with what you value," he offered. "What matters when no one's watching?" Eleanor considered this, her expression softening. "That's harder than it sounds." Marcus smiled faintly. "It usually is." She typed slowly, then paused. "I've spent years avoiding this," she said, not looking at him. It seemed inefficient. Marcus understood more than he expected. "Sometimes efficiency costs more," he said quietly. The words hung between them. Outside, thunder rolled distantly. Eleanor closed the laptop halfway, as if the screen had suddenly become too bright. "Thank you," she said. "For staying." Marcus stood. "Anytime." As he reached the door, Eleanor spoke again, softer. "Mr. Hale." He turned. "I didn't ask," she said. "But, do you have someone waiting at home?" Marcus thought of Lily's careful handwriting, the empty chair across from her. "Yes," he said. "I do." Eleanor nodded, something unreadable crossing her face. "Drive safely." Marcus left, unaware that something subtle had shifted, Not just in that quiet office, but in the story both of them were only beginning to enter. He walked into the rain with his collar turned up, the city humming around him, unaware of how often small moments rewrote futures. At the bus stop the next morning, Lily asked why he looked thoughtful and he said it was just work. He did not mention the office, the quiet, or the way someone had finally listened. Days would pass before their paths crossed again, yet the memory stayed steady and warm like a light left on in another room. For now, Marcus focused on the road ahead, carrying home groceries, hope folded carefully, and a promise he did not yet know how to name. It would return when he least expected, during routine emails, shared silence in meetings, and a question he had not dared to ask himself. Part of him guarded that feeling, practical and cautious, but another part allowed it to exist, gentle and patient. Somewhere above the city, an office light would stay on longer than necessary, and two separate lives would continue, slowly bending toward a truth neither was ready to speak. Tonight, it was enough that the rain washed the sidewalks clean, and Marcus went home believing for the first time in years that being seen might not require asking. Somewhere, a quiet beginning waited. Patient, unnoticed but real. And closer than he knew. The next morning unfolded like most others, steady and unremarkable, yet Marcus sensed a faint difference he could not explain. He walked Lily to the bus stop under a pale sky, listening as she talked about a spelling test and a classmate who cried easily. He nodded, answered when needed, and tucked the conversation away with the rest of his careful attention. Still, his mind drifted back to the office, to a laptop turned halfway closed and a voice that had sounded less certain than usual. At work, routine reclaimed him. Emails waited. Tickets piled up. The building hummed with quiet urgency. Marcus settled into his desk, fixing problems that would never bear his name. Yet when his inbox chimed mid-morning, his breath caught before he could stop it. The sender was Eleanor Wright. The message was brief. "Thank you again for your help yesterday." One line, professionally punctuated. No warmth, no follow-up. Marcus read it twice, then archived it like any other message. Still, the simple acknowledgement stayed with him, heavier than praise ever had. Across the building, Eleanor sat in her office, staring at a schedule packed with meetings. She moved through them with practiced efficiency, but something tugged at her focus. The dating app icon lingered on her phone screen, unopened. She had not deleted it. She had not adjusted it either. Instead, she found herself thinking about the way Marcus had spoken without expectation, as if honesty were not a risk but a given. At lunch, Marcus ate at his desk, scrolling through grocery prices and checking his account balance. He planned meals carefully, stretching ingredients, avoiding waste. He wondered briefly what Eleanor ate, then dismissed the thought as irrelevant. Their lives did not intersect that way. The afternoon passed until Marcus received a call from facilities, asking him to check an issue on the executive floor. He hesitated before accepting, aware of how quickly his pulse changed. He told himself it was coincidence, nothing more. Eleanor was in a meeting when Marcus arrived, voices murmuring behind the closed glass door. He waited quietly, reviewing the request on his tablet. When the door finally opened, executives filed out, expressions neutral. Eleanor lingered, catching sight of Marcus and offering a small nod. "Could you give us a moment?" she asked him once the hall cleared. "Of course." She closed the door again, this time more gently. The office felt different in daylight, less secluded, more exposed. Eleanor leaned against her desk, folding her arms loosely. "I wanted to clarify something," she said. "Yesterday was informal." Marcus met her gaze, steady. "I understand. I don't want you to feel obligated," she continued. "Your help was appreciated, but it was outside your role." Marcus chose his words carefully. "I didn't feel obligated," he said. "I chose to help." The honesty surprised them both. Eleanor straightened, considering him. "Thank you," she said again, as if the word carried more meaning now. She gestured to the laptop. "The app suggested changes overnight," she added, almost wry. "I ignored them." Marcus smiled before he could stop himself. "That's allowed." Eleanor returned the smile, brief but genuine. Silence followed, comfortable and strange. Marcus fixed the technical issue quickly, hands moving automatically. When he finished, Eleanor spoke again. "May I ask something personal?" she said, pausing as if prepared for refusal. Marcus nodded. "You can ask." "How do you manage?" she said. "Everything." He thought of Lily's patience, of exhaustion and small victories. "One day at a time," he said. "You focus on what needs you most." Eleanor absorbed this. "And what about what you need?" Marcus hesitated. "That comes later." She did not argue. Instead, she nodded as if recognizing the answer. "Thank you for your time," she said. "You should go." Marcus left, aware of how the office door closed behind him with unusual finality. For the rest of the day he worked with a quiet steadiness, unaware of Eleanor watching his name in emails, noticing how often he appeared without recognition. That evening Marcus cooked dinner while Lily did homework. She watched him carefully, then asked, "Did something good happen today?" He paused. "Why do you ask?" "You're quieter," she said. "But not sad." Marcus smiled. "Maybe I'm thinking." Lily nodded, satisfied. Later, when she slept, Marcus sat at the table, bills spread out. He pushed them aside and stared at the empty chair across from him. He did not know what he was waiting for. Across the city, Eleanor stood alone in her kitchen, reheating food she barely tasted. She opened the dating app, reread her unfinished bio, then closed it again. Instead, she opened a blank note and typed a single sentence, not for anyone else but for herself. "I want to be seen without performing." She saved it and turned off the light, uncertain but lighter. In the days that followed, she found reasons to involve Marcus in minor tasks, careful to keep boundaries intact. Marcus noticed, said nothing, and continued as before. Yet something unspoken traveled between them, present in shared glances and restrained smiles. Neither spoke of it. Neither rushed it. Life continued, steady and demanding. But beneath schedules and responsibilities, a quiet awareness grew. Two people, accustomed to standing alone, had begun to notice the space between them. And that space, once empty, now felt like possibility. The question arrived on an ordinary afternoon, the kind designed to disappear into routine. Marcus was reviewing system logs when his phone vibrated with a calendar alert he didn't remember accepting. Executive floor, 3:30 p.m. No details. He stared at the screen for a moment, then closed his laptop and stood, smoothing his jacket out of habit more than necessity. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Marcus watched his reflection in the mirrored wall, noticing the faint lines near his eyes, the look of someone who had learned not to expect much. He reminded himself that this was work. Nothing more. Eleanor was alone when he entered her office. The blinds were half drawn, muting the afternoon light. She stood near the window, arms crossed loosely, gaze fixed on the city below. When she heard him, she turned, her expression careful but unsettled in a way Marcus had never seen. "Thank you for coming," she said. "This isn't technical." Marcus nodded once. "All right." She gestured for him to sit, then hesitated and remained standing herself. The silence between them felt heavier than before, charged with something unplanned. Eleanor took a breath, then another. "I've been thinking about our conversations," she said slowly. "And about something you said." Marcus waited. "You said you focus on what needs you most," she continued. "And that what you need comes later." He met her eyes, unsure where this was going. "Yes." Eleanor looked down, then back up. "What if later never comes?" The question landed softly but firmly. Marcus felt it settle somewhere deep, stirring memories he kept buried. He answered honestly. "Then you learn to live without it." Eleanor shook her head slightly. "I don't think that's living," she said. The words surprised her as much as him. She walked to her desk, resting her hands on its surface, grounding herself. "I'm not supposed to ask this," she added quietly. "And you're not required to answer." Marcus remained seated, attentive. "You can ask." She studied him for a long moment, then spoke. "Do you ever feel invisible?" Marcus did not respond immediately. He thought of meetings where his ideas went unheard until repeated by someone else. Of long nights no one noticed. Of carrying responsibility without recognition. "Yes," he said. Eleanor exhaled, relief flickering across her face. "I do too," she admitted. "Which makes no sense considering." She gestured vaguely at the office, the building, the life implied by her position. Marcus understood without explanation. "Visibility isn't the same as being seen," he said. The silence that followed felt different. Not awkward. Eleanor straightened. "I don't want to misuse my position," she said firmly. "This matters to me." Marcus nodded. It matters to me too, he said, surprising himself again. She hesitated, then asked the question she had circled all week, the one she knew crossed lines. If we met somewhere else, she said, voice steady but low, without titles, would you speak to me the same way? Marcus felt the weight of it, the risk embedded in the words. He thought of Lily, of responsibility, of caution hard-earned. He also thought of honesty. Yes, he said. I would. Eleanor's shoulders relaxed slightly, as if she had been holding herself rigid for too long. That's what I needed to know, she said. They stood there, neither moving. Then Marcus glanced at the clock. I should get back, he said gently. Yes, Eleanor agreed. Thank you for listening. Marcus left, heart steady but altered. He returned to his desk and worked until evening, hands sure, mind quieter than it had been in years. Yet the question echoed, not as pressure but as possibility. That night, Lily asked him to sit with her longer than usual. She leaned against him, tracing patterns on his sleeve. You seem different, she said. How? He asked. Like you're not carrying everything by yourself, she said simply. Marcus smiled, unsure how she knew. Maybe I'm learning, he said. Across the city, Eleanor sat at her kitchen table with a cup of untouched tea. She replayed the conversation, noting what she had revealed and what she had held back. For the first time in years, she did not feel exposed by honesty. She felt grounded. The next days passed with restraint. Eleanor did not summon Marcus without reason. Marcus did not seek her out. Yet when they crossed paths, something unspoken acknowledged itself. A glance held half a second longer. A pause before speaking. Neither named it. Both respected the space around it. Still, the question had been asked, and it had not undone them. Instead, it had opened a door neither rushed to enter. Boundaries remained intact, but curiosity lived just beyond them, patient and aware. On Friday evening, Eleanor stood at her window as the building emptied. She watched Marcus leave, coat on, phone to his ear, nodding as he listened. She did not know who he spoke to, but she imagined the warmth in his voice. The thought did not sting. It grounded her. Marcus stepped into the evening air, Lily's laughter echoing faintly through the phone. He listened, smiled, and felt something settle into place. Life had not changed, but perspective had. Sometimes he realized the most dangerous questions were not the ones that demanded answers, but the ones that reminded you that wanting was still possible. And once remembered, it could not be forgotten. The change did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, disguised as routine, woven into ordinary days until Marcus realized he was paying closer attention than before. Not in a way that disrupted his work or his life, but in a way that sharpened it. Conversations felt more deliberate. Silences felt fuller. And when Eleanor entered a room, he noticed not her authority, but her presence. They kept their distance. That was the unspoken rule both respected. Eleanor no longer called him late or asked for help that wasn't necessary. Marcus never lingered when a task was done. Yet the restraint itself created tension, a careful awareness humming beneath every interaction. One afternoon, a company-wide project required cross-department coordination. Marcus was assigned to support the executive team during system testing, placing him in Eleanor's orbit for hours at a time. The conference room was neutral ground, long table, muted lights, glass walls. Others came and went, but Marcus and Eleanor remained focused, professional. Still, there were moments. A shared glance when a presentation stalled. A quiet exchange of notes passed discreetly. When Eleanor spoke, Marcus anticipated her needs before she voiced them. When Marcus offered a solution, Eleanor listened without interruption. Colleagues noticed efficiency, nothing more. But beneath it something else lived. During a break, Marcus stepped into the hallway to take a call from Lily's school. He spoke softly, concern etched into his posture. Eleanor, passing by, slowed without thinking. She did not intrude. She only observed, noting the way Marcus listened, the way his shoulders eased when the call ended. "Everything all right?" she asked, stopping a respectful distance away. "Yes," Marcus said. "Just a schedule change." She nodded. "I hope it works out." "So do I." They stood there a moment too long. Not inappropriate. Just human. Then footsteps echoed and the moment passed. That evening, Eleanor stayed late reviewing documents. The building thinned, lights dimming floor by floor. She glanced at the clock, surprised by how much time had slipped away. When she finally stood to leave, she noticed Marcus still at his desk, focused, unaware of her presence. "You're still here," she said. Marcus looked up, startled. "I lost track of time." "So did I," Eleanor replied. They rode the elevator together in silence, the hum of descent filling the space. At the lobby, rain pressed against the glass again, familiar and steady. Eleanor hesitated, then spoke. "There's a cafe across the street," she said, carefully neutral. "I was going to stop for tea before heading home." Marcus understood the implication and the care behind it. Public place. No pressure. He considered Lily waiting, homework done, expecting him. He checked his phone. A message sat unread. "Take your time." "Okay. Love you." He looked up. "I can spare a few minutes." The cafe was quiet, warm, smelling of coffee and baked bread. They chose a table near the window. Coats hung on chair backs. For the first time there was no agenda, no role to fulfill. They spoke cautiously at first. About work, about the weather. Then Eleanor asked, "Do you come here often?" "Sometimes," Marcus said. "It's calm." "I like that," she replied. Calm. Silence settled, not uncomfortable. Outside, rain blurred passing headlights into streaks of light. Eleanor stirred her tea, watching the steam rise. "I don't do this," she said suddenly. Marcus looked at her. "What?" "Pause," she clarified. "Allow space." He nodded. "Most people don't." "I'm not most people," she said, then smiled faintly. "And neither are you." The words felt honest, not flattering. Marcus accepted them quietly. "I suppose not." They talked about small things. Books, music, childhood routines. Eleanor admitted she hated loud places. Marcus confessed he preferred early mornings. Nothing heavy. Nothing revealing. Yet each detail felt like a thread gently connecting. Time moved unnoticed. Eventually, Eleanor glanced at the clock and sighed. "I should go." Marcus stood. "Me too." Outside, the rain had softened. They paused beneath the awning, the city breathing around them. Eleanor turned to him. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight." Marcus met her gaze. "You're welcome." For a moment neither moved. The line between them felt thin, not crossed, but visible. Eleanor stepped back first, respectful. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, Eleanor." They went their separate ways, both aware of how carefully they had walked the edge of something new. At home, Marcus helped Lily with a science project, listened as she explained it twice. He tucked her in and sat beside her until her breathing evened out. Later, alone, he thought of the cafe, the conversation, the restraint. It felt right. Eleanor returned to her apartment and removed her coat slowly. She replayed the evening, not with anxiety but with clarity. No rules had been broken. No promises made. Yet something had shifted, undeniable. Over the following week they settled into a new rhythm. Professional on the surface. Attentive beneath. Emails remained formal. Meetings stayed efficient. But when Eleanor spoke, Marcus heard more than words. When Marcus offered an idea, Eleanor considered not just its merit, but its intention. Others sensed the change without naming it. The team functioned more smoothly. Decisions felt less rigid. Kindness surfaced in small ways. No one could point to a cause. What neither of them said aloud was this. Lines did not blur because of recklessness. They blurred because trust had formed first. Fully. Carefully. With respect. And once trust existed, distance became a choice rather than a rule. A choice both were still learning how to make. The risk did not arrive dramatically. It crept in through routine decisions, quiet compromises, and moments that asked for honesty instead of courage. Marcus felt it first on a Monday morning when Lily's school called again, this time with urgency. He listened, jaw tight, as the nurse explained a minor accident and a frightened child waiting for her father. "I'll be there," Marcus said, already standing. He emailed his supervisor, grabbed his coat and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, he saw Eleanor step into the hallway, eyes meeting his just before the elevator descended. There was no time to explain. At the school, Lily clung to him, shaken but unharmed. Marcus signed forms, murmured reassurances, and carried her home. He stayed with her all afternoon, working remotely, answering messages late into the evening. Exhaustion settled into his bones. When he returned to the office the next day, he found an email from Eleanor marked urgent. He hesitated then opened it. Are you all right? I saw you leave suddenly yesterday. The concern was unmistakable. Marcus stared at the screen longer than necessary before replying. My daughter had an accident. She's fine now. Thank you for asking. The reply came quickly. I'm glad she's okay. If you need flexibility this week, let me know. Marcus leaned back, uneasy. The offer was kind. It was also dangerous. He closed his eyes briefly, reminding himself why lines existed. He typed a neutral response and returned to work. But the awareness lingered. Eleanor noticed it too. She found herself watching Marcus more closely, gauging his energy, his focus. She told herself it was leadership, concern for an employee. Yet when she imagined him leaving the company, the thought unsettled her in a way she could not justify. The risk became real during a quarterly review meeting. A senior executive questioned Marcus's recent availability, implying a lack of commitment. Marcus sat silently, absorbing the criticism with practiced restraint. Before he could respond, Eleanor spoke. Marcus has consistently exceeded expectations, she said calmly. His recent absence was approved and justified. The room quieted. The executive nodded, chastened. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest, gratitude tangled with discomfort. Eleanor had defended him publicly. Necessary perhaps, but noticeable. After the meeting, Marcus approached her office, uncertainty pulling at him. He knocked lightly. Come in, Eleanor said. He stood near the door. Thank you, he said. For earlier. Eleanor nodded. It was appropriate. Marcus hesitated. It also put you in a position. She studied him. So did your silence. The words landed heavier than intended. Marcus met her gaze. I didn't want to complicate things. I know, she said. But sometimes avoiding complication creates it. They stood there, tension sharpening. Eleanor took a breath. We need to be careful, she said. For both our sakes. Yes, Marcus agreed. That's why I wanted to talk. She gestured to the chair, then sat across from him, posture formal. Say what you need to say. Marcus chose honesty. I don't want special treatment, he said. And I don't want my personal life used against me. Eleanor nodded. You won't receive either, she said. But I won't allow unfairness. Their eyes held. The line between them trembled, strained by intention rather than desire. Eleanor broke the gaze first. There's something else, she said quietly. I've been offered a position overseas. Temporary. 6 months. Marcus felt the words before he understood them. Congratulations, he said automatically. Thank you, she replied. I haven't accepted. Silence followed. Marcus processed the implications. Distance. Separation. Relief perhaps. Or loss. You don't have to decide now, he said. I know, Eleanor said. But I wanted you to know. The risk revealed itself fully then, not as attraction but as consequence. Choices mattered now. Lives were intertwined enough that absence would be felt. That evening Marcus walked home slowly, Lily's hand in his. She chattered about her day, unburdened. Marcus listened, grateful for the grounding. At home after dinner, Lily asked, Are you worried? He smiled gently. Just thinking. About what? About making the right choice, he said. She nodded solemnly, as if understanding more than her years allowed. The right choice usually feels scary, she said. Marcus laughed softly. Where did you hear that? You, she replied. Across the city, Eleanor packed a suitcase she might not use. She laid clothes out carefully, then folded them back into drawers. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, considering whether to message Marcus. She did not. Instead, she stared at the city lights and acknowledged the truth she had been avoiding. Caring was the risk. The next day, Marcus received a meeting request. One-on-one. Eleanor. No subject line. He felt the weight of it settle in his chest, equal parts dread and resolve. When he entered her office, Eleanor stood by the window, composed but thoughtful. She turned as he approached. I've decided, she said. Marcus waited. I'm postponing the assignment, she continued. Not because of you. Because I realized I was using distance to avoid confronting what I want. Marcus absorbed this quietly. And what do you want? Eleanor met his eyes. Clarity, she said. And integrity. Marcus nodded. So do I. They stood there, understanding settling between them. The risk had not disappeared. It had simply been named. And once named, it demanded choice. Choosing what mattered most did not happen in a single conversation or decisive moment. It unfolded slowly, shaped by patience and restraint. Marcus returned to his desk after leaving Eleanor's office, his hands steady, his thoughts clear. For the first time in years he felt aligned with himself. There was no urgency to define anything, no need to rush forward or pull away. Only the quiet certainty that honesty, once invited, demanded consistency. He worked through the afternoon with focus, finishing tasks early, then left on time to meet Lily, carrying with him a calm he had not known he was missing. Eleanor remained by the window long after Marcus left. The city stretched beneath her, busy and indifferent. She felt lighter, not because decisions were easier but because they were clearer. Leadership had taught her how to move quickly, how to act decisively. This required something different. It required waiting. She closed her laptop, canceled her remaining meetings and left the office without ceremony. For the first time in years she did not fill the evening with obligations. She went home and allowed the quiet to stay. Days passed, steady and unremarkable yet altered. Marcus and Eleanor kept their boundaries intact, speaking professionally, exchanging no unnecessary messages. But something fundamental had shifted. There was no longer tension in avoidance, no anxiety in restraint. When they spoke, it was direct. When they paused, it was intentional. Marcus found himself sleeping better, waking with more energy. Lily noticed first. She laughed more easily, asked fewer careful questions. Stability, she sensed, had deepened. One evening, Eleanor asked Marcus to meet her in the lobby before leaving. The request was simple, unremarkable. Marcus agreed without hesitation. They walked outside together, the city settling into dusk. Eleanor spoke first. "I've adjusted reporting structures," she said. "Your role will shift slightly. More visibility. No change in expectations." Marcus listened. "Thank you for telling me. This isn't about us," she added calmly. "It's about fairness." "I appreciate that," he said. They walked in silence for a block, then Eleanor stopped. "I'd like to ask something," she said. Without pressure. Marcus turned to her. "All right. Would you be willing," she said carefully, "to have coffee sometime? Outside of work. As equals?" Marcus considered the question not out of fear but respect. He thought of Lily, of routine, of balance. Then he nodded. "Yes," he said. "I would." Eleanor smiled, not relieved but grounded. "Then we'll take it slowly." "That's the only way I know," Marcus replied. They chose a Saturday morning, public and unhurried. Lily spent the day with a friend. Marcus arrived early, ordering coffee and waiting without expectation. Eleanor arrived moments later, dressed simply, unguarded. They talked as they always had, about books and schedules, about small preferences and quiet habits. No declarations. No promises. Just presence. Over time, consistency built trust. They learned each other's rhythms. Marcus spoke openly about fatherhood, about fear and responsibility. Eleanor shared pieces of her past, not as confession but context. They respected pauses. They honored limits. What grew between them felt earned, not borrowed. At work, Eleanor remained fair and measured. Marcus remained professional and diligent. No one questioned their integrity because it was never compromised. When colleagues noticed a change, they attributed it to growth, not scandal. That suited them both. Months later, Lily met Eleanor during a company event. Eleanor knelt to Lily's height, listened as she spoke, asked thoughtful questions. Lily smiled easily, unguarded. Marcus watched, aware of how rare that was. Eleanor did not assume closeness. She allowed it to form naturally. That night Lily asked, "Is she important to you?" Marcus answered honestly. "Yes." Lily nodded. "She seems kind." "She is," he said. Choosing what mattered most did not mean abandoning caution. It meant valuing integrity over fear, connection over isolation. Marcus and Eleanor did not rush toward a future. They allowed one to unfold. Slowly. Carefully. With respect. Years later, Marcus would think back to the evening he helped his CEO with a dating app. How small it had seemed. How ordinary. He would remember the question she asked instead and how it had changed nothing immediately, yet everything eventually. Eleanor would remember it too. Not as a turning point, but as an opening. A reminder that strength did not require distance and leadership did not demand loneliness. In the end, what mattered most was not the risk they took, but the values they refused to compromise. Dignity, patience, truth. And in choosing those, they chose each other quietly, honestly, and without regret.